Down here on the Matagorda shoreline, as you head up toward Bray Cove area. This past week we began our full moon phase, and we're right smack dab in the middle of the full moon right now. So the last probably 3 to 4 days was very difficult. We had some really tough days out on the water. It's not just wasn't a lot of bites that we were getting opportunities. Even in these areas where we're pretty consistent at finding and catching fish, it's just this past week was really difficult, and it's 100% all about that full moon phase. Got another probably 5-6 days of it to contend with. Of course, it'll be that moon set will be a lot later in the morning now, because a lot of that stuff was overnight this past week. So now you'll be looking at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock moon set time frame, which should set up pretty well for some decent mornings here in the next several days. We also have, looks like forecast wise, we have possibility of rain chances each day this upcoming one, which we can use the rain we need pretty bad. Everything's pretty dry, but that can also deter people from being out on the water, not to really want to contend with those opportunities. But didn't look like there's anything that was like super high percentage wise. Everything was in that 30 to 50% range. So just have a little slicker on the boat if you get a chance to be on the water this upcoming week, just to be prepared for it. As long as there's no lightning in it, it's all good. But anyhow, fishing that back shoreline here on the Matagorda side all the way up to where the Texas Parks and Wildlife building is, up in that little slough back there, by that broken down pier, that little flat that's out there. We've found a few fish there. Like I said, this past several days has not been good as far as opportunities has presenting itself. So we really had to work. So we just spent a lot of areas, just working different areas. The edges here, getting back here in the back lake in some of those, and when the water was available for us to get back in there. Of course, we got this. They rebuilt the road there, so now getting back into Little Brunnet's very difficult unless you just want to walk over the road to get to it. But you can get back in here to the other side of this back lake, in which we spent a little bit of time in there. We've had a couple of big days as far as wind goes, so some of these areas were really tough to get to. Mesquite Bay gets to be rocking and rolling. It gets a little difficult out there. So, we just worked shorelines on the right kind of days that we were there. Just kind of get the wind at our back if we could, and just work down these edges here. Spent just a little bit of time just to check to see if fish are showing up on the reefs. This one reef that's right out here typically holds fish. But again, the day that we were out here on this particular one, it just did not yield very many opportunities for us. So was there some fish on it? Yes. Was it great numbers? No. Not by any means. It didn't matter what we threw at it. And then, of course, the day that we fished on it was pretty beat up just from the wind standpoint. So we had to kind of change our tactics from that. And then started working over here in the dugout, Ayers dugout, working these areas around all this here. But again, big moon, man, we had to, if you're not changing your profiles of your baits, you're doing yourself an in-service. It's just, you got to downsize it. And then, if you want to play with a little bit bigger profile bait, then that's fine. You can do that. But to start your fishing day out, you really need to downsize that. So we threw a lot of the burner shad, lots of little johns, the smaller Miradine, the smaller soft dine, just a small profile bait, man, and just give those fish an opportunity. Say they're coming off night feeds because they're predominantly night feeders, especially in and around the full moon phase. So if you try to throw something like you normally would on any other condition time that's a new moon or a transition moon, then your days are probably not going to be very successful. And even with the downsizing of the profile, we just did not have a lot of productivity the last several days. So they were grinding days, and that, if you fished enough, you understand that that's going to happen. You hate it when it does, but you just got to be prepared for it and kind of embrace the suck, if you will. Because it does. But every time that you get out on the water in some conditions like that, it's a learning condition. You can pick up some little things that will help you for the next time that condition presents itself to you. So those are always a great thing. You should always be learning when you get out there on the water, no matter what. That just makes you a better fisherman. Like I said, we use the down south burner shads in multiple different flavors. White ice, bone diamond, Big Papa, Twisted Tea, Purple Rain were the main ones that we were throwing. Of course, in the Little Johns, depending on what the water clarity was, the Truth has been very good for us for the last couple of months. Watermelon Red, again, in there, the Golden Red Glitter, the Kitchen Sink. Those were the 4 primaries that we threw in that. And then the Soft Dine, I had a couple of guys that threw some Mirrodines that were the smaller version. Color-wise, it was just pretty much a natural color, and that's what the Soft Dine was. It's just a natural kind of a mullet color, gray side, black back. But again, the small profile, and that's what I would urge you to this upcoming week is to continue with that small profile bait. Like I say, we've got another 6 or 7 days with the full moon that's going to be in full tilt for us. So those bite frames were not very long. The bites in and around that time frame were not very long. So just kind of be prepared for that this upcoming week. And again, with the weather conditions being what they're going to be, again, we rears, if we could incorporate the moon set, then we did. But most of the time it was the majors under that we were fishing during the day to give us and get our opportunities in and around these time frames. Again, the reefs up here in Spalding, you got Spalding Reef. We spent one day, I think, up on this one, Poverty Reef. You've got all these little reefs that are in here. Jaybird Point Reef, this area back in here, that reef that's out there. Again, the fish are starting to show up on them. Should be even more and more. So next opportunity that you get, our water temps are consistently hovering in the mid-80s now. It's 84, 85. So these reefs are going to be areas, and you got deeper water access that's in and around those places like that. Still working shorelines. A couple of days back, we were up here in Long Reef Bend area. So we were fishing, one of the days we had the right amount of water that you can push up against the shoreline and work it from there. But then we had some tidal stuff that dropped out on us later in the week. So we pushed out on the outer sandbar to the little bit deeper grass beds, and it really set up well for us. So again, we didn't have great bite days as far as opportunities goes, but the fish that we caught here on these particular areas, on Long Reef Bend and on those deeper grass beds, we caught better quality fish, though it wasn't a great number. The fish that we were catching out there on those beds were, they were in that 19 to 22 range, so they're very solid fish. You can tell that they still got a lot of them still got eggs, man. They haven't laid yet, and that's why they're kind of hanging out around those areas. It's just something for you to tuck away for you from a tip standpoint. If you've got an area, whether it's this area, working these deeper grass beds, or further south or further north, wherever you're fishing, those fish are pushing up on those grass beds like that. And if you have an area that's got that, that's really where you need to be targeting into those types of areas like that. Like I say, those fish are out there on that. They're starting to, again, they're getting ready to lay eggs, if not already. So you can kind of expect that to be a thing for the next month and a half, maybe 2 months, because we've caught fish in the past where they still got eggs in them, or redeveloped eggs, late July into August. They're out to lay 2 sets of eggs, or have 2 different periods where they develop and lay eggs, should I say. But anyhow, again, the same type of thing. We just work these areas here, and when you could get a few bites, string some together, it was a pretty productive day for the most part. Just to kind of let you know how difficult it was. Saturday was extremely difficult. This past Saturday, it was just because we had a big tournament going on, a lot of people on the water. So if you didn't find fish fairly early on that particular day, it became a grind. And then on top of that, you're having 20, 25 mile an hour winds that were cranking in on you too. So a lot of people were on protected shorelines. Some places look like a parking lot. So like I say, that particular day, Saturday, was extremely difficult just to find and locate and just get opportunities. So sometimes you have to contend with that, and that's part of it. So a lot of grace and patience on days like that. So you just kind of have to really have multiple locations for you to try to locate some fish and not get too twisted about it. So again, the same baits, smaller profile baits. We're really working the burner shads in those flavors. Again, the Big Papa, Twisted Tea, Purple Rain, White Ice, Bone Diamond. White Ice and Bone Diamond starting to pick up some steam in that as far as productivity goes. So especially the white ice, it produced pretty well for us on several different days. So that's always kind of a staple in our box. But if you haven't had that in your box or haven't been throwing that, you might want to put some of that back in there, which is a little bit on the bigger side. And of course, the original down south, the knock and tail was the greenback primarily that we were through, and then a little bit of heavy metal in there. The watermelon red in the original size, Big Papa in the original size, Twisted Tea in the original size, White Ice, Bone Diamond in that as well. So that gave you just a little bit different profile. Still small enough for those fish to react to it. But again, this past week, the burner shad size did the best productivity for us this past week. So that was really what we stuck with, and that will be the upcoming this coming theme. We will again do the same thing until the fish dictate to us what else they want. So, and like I say, we'll incorporate a little bit bigger profiles maybe later in the week, but right now in the first half of this week, it's all going to be small stuff. Like I say, the Little Johns, Burner Shad, all that's the size that we're going to be dealing with primarily, and then we'll have the minor, the moonset minor coming up this week will be in our favor. So really incorporate that in your fishing day if you're able to be out on this water this upcoming week. Again, just make sure you pay attention to what your weather reports are. Tide reports have been very important this past week as well. So it really kind of helps you to eliminate water if you understand what's going on with that. But anyhow, when you do get the chance to get on the water, make sure you enjoy yourself and be safe. Here in Copano Bay, sometimes this is just a nice little easy run right there off the Copano Bay Bridge, just right over here to Newcomb. The great thing about this is you got a great long little shoreline, has all the right structure. It's over it. I say all these fish have moved over into the hard packed sand, grass, shale. Those should be your primary targets as far as the type of structure that you're going to want to be. Again, the point down here, and then of course you have the little lap reef that used to be out here. It's all submerged now, and then you just got little areas. If you can find them on your GPS, all these little areas here. They had a few fish that were hanging on them here and there. A couple of these that are like out here in the middle. Just sometimes you just kind of play around just to see what's going on. So I drifted over a couple of those and pulled a couple of small trout off of it. So kind of was pleasantly surprised about that. So it was more of a look and see type of thing than actual trying to fish it to catch fish off of it. But like I say, most of our fish this past week, or the day that we spent here on this particular on Newcomb shoreline, came off of this. We were out. We didn't fish up in the shoreline area because I think the day that we fished this, water had dropped out somewhat. So we were fishing more off on the edge, and we would get out there in that waist deep and fish a little bit deeper areas, and just kind of work these areas here. Like I say, we're trying to incorporate our major under during those times, because that was really outside of that. We were not getting opportunities this past week in and around that time frame. So, or should I say outside of that time frame, it just wasn't happening. There was a lot of lull in there for quite a few casts before we got another opportunity. But most of the bites came around the major. I would encourage you to really incorporate that into your fishing day, especially this upcoming week. What I just said in the last video, a lot of the moonset minor will be taking place this coming week that will be accessible unless you just got up really, really early and wanted to fish in the dark hours. We haven't quite got to that point yet as far as heat goes. I'm sure that's coming probably later this month, definitely next month, and especially in August. There'll be time frames and when you want to be there, before sun up to see if you can find and catch your fish, because water temps will be much warmer, and the air temps as well. But like I say, we just fished off these edges, fished the guts, found a few fish that were here. Again, it's the same bait. It's a small profile bait, 16th ounce jig head. Just really took our time, worked these areas really, really well. Very methodical, like I say, because we just weren't getting the opportunities as we've had in weeks past. So, and like I say, full moon phase happens. There's going to be those times where it's just fish are not going to want to eat what you have to offer, and you just have to really work and try to figure some stuff out. But we kind of got a little bit of a pattern as we kind of got through the week and just kind of see how things set up for us. Like I say, the biggest thing was the small profile baits, Little Johns and the assorted colors, watermelon red, the Truth, red and gold glitter, kitchen sink, all those did pretty well when we had the opportunity. And of course, again, the burner shad and the flavors that I've mentioned already. That's primarily what we threw. Anything outside of that. The knock and tail was one. Another thing too, I haven't mentioned in a while, has been the marker 54. I had a guy throw the marker 54, both the paddle tail, which he did okay with, and the jerk shrimp. He did okay with it. So don't forget about that one. And that's always an easy thing too. If you're not real proficient with throwing artificials too much, you can tie one of those popping corks on there and put you that marker 54 shrimp underneath and go to town with it and just start working it with that, and you'd be pleasantly surprised how effective that particular bait is. So it does well. Like I say, I haven't thrown it in a little bit, so that came back out. So it kind of puts me back in the forefront and put one of those baits back in. That put the jerk shrimp back in the box and tie one of those on and free line it, if you will, or on a popping cork, whatever you like. Kind of work it over the potholes depending on where you're fishing. But if you decide to fish Nukem this upcoming week, should set up pretty well. There's fish that are hanging there, which, like I say, we're starting to be on the backside of this big moon in place here, and hopefully the fishing will pick up this upcoming week, and they'll be a little bit more hungry for us.